So part of what you're seeing in LA was enabled by the fact that high levels of government were infiltrated by communist sympathizers and by people who want to unduly influence politics to suit their own agendas. And we're going to talk about something similar happening in the United Kingdom. And we want to talk about the various Muslim networks that exist in the civil service and in the Home Office and in the unions and in the various political parties that are trying to essentially gain sectarian influence and have the ability to control and affect policy regardless of democratic norms. Now, if you look, you will see that, for example, the Conservatives have their own Muslim forum. In the Greens, there is a Muslim forum that is very focused on the interests of their own community. And in the Greens, they are running Mu'adhin Ali. I suppose they want to say Mu'adhin Ali, but the Pakistanis have a problem with Arabic. They want to present themselves as the future of the Green Party, but they are not the most influential Muslim network. That honor is reserved for the Labour Muslim Network, which has been quite honest in terms of describing the relationship between them and the Labour Party. And I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from reports that they themselves have published in order to highlight a couple of points, especially about how the leftist Islamist alliance ends up operating in practice and the outcomes and influence that it has on policy. So, quoting directly from the Labour Muslim Representatives report, these guys basically surveyed a couple of hundred elected officials who are both Muslim and belong to the Labour Party. They followed decent methodology, statistically speaking, and they came out with a series of views. In their introduction, they say, the historic relationship between the Labour Party and the British Muslim communities is well established and long-standing. So we're not accusing anybody of a conspiracy here. No. This is a confession. There is a long-standing relationship between the Muslim community and the Labour Party. For generations, they continue, Muslim voters across the country have loyally supported Labour candidates locally and nationally, and many Muslim members have served the party within the local CLPs as councillors, mayors, and members of parliament. This relationship, forged through shared commitments to social equality and civil rights, has been one of the strongest electoral alignments in British modern political history.
Make it very clear there, don't they? Political alignments.
Are we debating this? Or is this us casting aspersions or coming up with conspiracies? Or this is what they're actually saying? They continue. Muslims are estimated to form around 7% of the population in England and Wales. Ahead of the 2024 general election, the Labour Muslim Network, in partnership with Survation, published research suggesting that this support could be cut in half by the time of the next election. Notice the threat here. If you don't do what we're saying, nice Mr. Keir Starmer, the level of support that you have, which delivers maybe 20, 30 safe seats to Labour, will be halved. You'd better listen to us. Already there was a 34% decrease in support for Labour from the previous election. And this came as a result of independent candidates running on pro-Palestinian and anti-Islamophobia platforms, including Leicester South, Dewsbury, Bately. They continue with their names. 2/3 of councillors and mayors say that they are not treated equally to other representatives in the Labour Party. Now, our perception is that the white majority is treated as lesser, but their perception is that it's the other way around. 1 in 3 Muslim Labour representatives describe the party as institutionally Islamophobic. So nearly 40% say that the Labour Party is institutionally Islamophobic.
Yeah, it's like the word racist.
It's like the word racist. It's exactly the right word racist. Yes.
It's like turning around and saying the Labour Party is institutionally Islamophobic is like saying the Labour Party is a supporter of mass open-door corporate capitalism.
It's
that's
absurd on so many levels.
It just doesn't exist.
Over half do not believe that the Labour Party takes Islamophobia seriously. This is coming at a time when new legislation around Islamophobia could permanently curtail the freedom to discuss Islam and the errors of Islam.
We wouldn't even be here. We're not even allowed.
So
But also for us, tell me if you disagree with this. I think that the use of speech in this case, it's not a veridical issue. It's not an issue of portraying truth or falsity. They will constantly say this, in the same way that the left will constantly saying anyone not as left as Mao is far right.
Exactly.
It's a means of exerting pressure. If we just completely abstract truth or falsity from it, it's just a naked power play.
Yep. Yeah. Nearly 40% have experienced Islamophobia in their time as representatives. This is Islamophobia from other Labour members. 83% believe that the Labour government should end its boycott of the Muslim Council of Britain.
There you go.
Now, the reason for the boycott of the Muslim Council of Britain came about initially because of their position on Gaza, which seems to be a theme here. They don't object to what they do here. They do object to their position on Israel, which is a problem. But the Deputy Secretary General had signed a declaration that has been interpreted as calling for violence against Israel and condoning attacks on British troops. Mm-hmm. This is what initially led to the break between the Muslim Council of Britain and the government.
So you had maximalists who claimed preposterous things.
Yep.
There was a reaction, and now they say, okay, let's just lay a bit, let's fly under the radar.
Yep. So the meeting where he signed this document was a meeting that called for the Muslim Ummah to act against Israel back in 2009. Mm-hmm. So he's in Britain. He views himself as part of the Muslim Ummah, first and foremost, and the vast majority of Muslims in the Labour Party want to continue association with this organization. Mm-hmm. Now, this man ended up having to resign, and the Muslim Council of Britain ended up saying that no, they don't condone the statement, they don't condone his actions. But we tend to see this dynamic where one of the members says something that is extremely embarrassing, and then the institution says, no, this doesn't represent our official position. But at the end of the day, personnel is policy. If your organization constantly attracts these kinds of people, then you have a problem. And they use this issue against the right all the time. Whenever somebody on the right pops up and says something racist, they say that this is fully representative of the conservatives or of reform or of whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But they refuse to have the same standards that they use applied to them.
Absolutely.
I wonder whether they are accused of being transphobic ever, or being anti-feminist.
So on their conservative social views, they've had a problem with some of Labour. Okay. They've had a problem with some of Labour on their conservative social views. And I do share some of their conservative social views. But I think them or one of the other Muslim organizations was demanding the right to withdraw children from things like music lessons as part of their social conservatism.
Yeah. But you see also the establishment saying that non-Muslims are constantly transphobic or anti-LGBTQ if they say their opinion, but you don't see these criticisms addressed
to
Muslims.
Very, very rarely does this issue ever come up. They deploy these issues in a very selective manner. They deploy these issues in a very selective manner. They condemn social conservatism when it comes from Christians. They never condemn it, or they very lightly condemn it when it comes from Muslims. And you can see a certain level of selective outrage at play here. And you see basically Muslim Labour saying we are staunch allies of the Labour Party and we want to continue with the Labour Party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the whole gist in which this report is written. Let me sort of show you a couple of more things that these people are involved in. One of the candidates for the leadership of the Muslim Council of Britain said that choosing faith as a primary identity for your children, and of course yourself, allows a solid foundation upon which to approach the world. Note that I say primary as opposed to only. Teach them to be Muslim primarily.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what the Muslim Council of Britain, one of their leadership contenders, advocates for. And 83% of Muslim representatives who are in the Labour Party want the government to have a fully functional relationship with this organization. So I don't know where they stand on this statement, but as somebody who is a religious convert, I will tell you that it's natural to view religion as your primary identity.
Yes.
But that Christianity doesn't clash with being British. Britain is a fundamentally Christian country, whereas Islam does. And I think we need to be a little bit more open about that, and I think we need to be a little more honest about this.
I just don't think they want to be honest about it.
No.
And they will totally ignore this.
Yep.
And they do so in a way that is very ignorant of the future and very ignorant of the clashes to come. Because at the end of the day, as they build and grow groups within a political party, which they think is we're trying to link coalitions.
Yes.
That's what sits in their head. We need coalitions to be able to get rid of this, and social justice is our coalition champion. But that in the end, those coalitions will come up against each other because one of them has to be in power.
Yes.
One has to run the show.
Yes.
And that person wants, or that group, once they're in power, they will stand upon you and destroy you in this very way that you destroyed the organizations that were in opposition to you in the first place.
Yes, yes. And this is clearly the objective. So you see Labour Muslims extremely focused on the issue of Islamophobia. But the way that Islamophobia is defined is fundamentally the problem. If you say facts that come from mainstream Muslim sources, like the fact that Muhammad had a 9-year-old wife, or that he consummated a marriage with a 9-year-old.
That becomes Islamophobia.
That becomes Islamophobic.
Yeah.
If you say that Islam permitted the rape of married Muslim women when Arabs had found that the rape of married enemies of the Muslims, when Arabs had found that the rape of married women was not acceptable, that is seen as Islamophobic. If you discuss the basic tenets of Islam, this is
also
Islamophobic. But, in the Fatiha, in the verse that sort of opens the Quran, which begins practically as every Muslim prayer, the last verse in that says, keep us away from the path of those who God is angry with, and that is always understood as meaning the Jews, and those who have been led astray, and that is read as meaning the Christians. So the very essence of Islam is an attack on Christianity and Judaism. This is how it came to be. It's part of a debate between Christians and Jews over the correct way of worshiping God, and Muslims took a position in that antagonistic to both the preceding faiths. This kind of restriction of discussion of Islam because of Islamophobia means that you can't have a religious discussion. Means that you just have to sort of never ever criticize Islam.
But you'd be perfectly able to criticize Judaism or Christianity or
Obviously.
Sikhism. It's and that's where the
you
problem
will not
comes.
see a Monty Python skit about Islam.
No, of course not.
When you do, you end up with a Charlie Hebdo massacre.
Yeah.
And there is also the other element of subjectivizing legislation, because when we're talking about blasphemy and about being offended, we know that wokeness has thrived on subjectivizing legislation.
I don't think it's going away.
Which makes it very easy for someone to just project Islamophobia on anyone.
Yeah, I think wokeism is strengthening just behind the scenes. I think it's changing the law and the legislation to be able to do one final push to crush us.
Yep. Now, this is even more worrying because within the civil service of the British government, there are Muslim networks that are explicitly named as such. The core aims of the civil service Muslim network, and this is the website of the Cabinet Office. This isn't a conspiracy that these guys are trying to infiltrate. No. This is public knowledge. It's on the Cabinet Office's website. This is endorsed by the government and permitted by the government. Their aim, they say, is to help create a truly inclusive workplace where civil servants of all backgrounds fulfill their potential and thrive, where every voice is heard. Okay. What are the core aims? Represent, support, connect, and champion Muslim civil servants across government. You're not going to see a Christian network or a Jewish network in Pakistan or in Egypt or in Iraq. This is not going to be tolerated.
No.
But there is a whole set of civil servants in the British government who are dedicated to the core aim of connecting and championing Muslim civil servants, generating a better understanding of Islam, not by discussing the tenets of Islam, mind you, because that's Islamophobic, within the civil service, and challenge discrimination misconceptions. Create a network of senior allies who recognize the lived experience of Muslim colleagues.
Yeah, it's just wokeness. And also there's the suppressed premise that you can't understand something better by criticizing it.
Exactly. And how do they do it? They collaborate with wider diversity and inclusion networks on projects, events, etc. Recognize the contributions of Muslims in civil service. So fast track to promotions, essentially. Promote development opportunities for civil service Muslim network members. Mm-hmm. Now, by definition, if you're doing this and promoting them just for Muslims, you're not doing it based on merit, and you're excluding the non-Muslims, just by the definitions of words. Mm-hmm. But this is permitted.
I think we see this not just in the civil service. I think anyone who's worked in the large corporations, when they're working in big businesses and in banks, we see all of this. The BBC certainly has one. And I've never really liked these networks. They began with women's networks. We've got LGBT networks. You've got disability networks. Look, at the end of the day, you should just be going in and doing your job and being promoted because you're good. Simple as that. The very purpose of these networks is to avoid any meritocracy. Is simply to promote the ideology of that particular group and work within it and exclude those who might come from a different group of yours who is better than you.
Yes, exactly.
And that we now see, obviously, employment cases and people being removed from jobs.
And there's the issue of the tyranny of the minority, because parties across the political spectrum make several projections about the kind of voters they're going to get.
Yeah.
And that means that some small groups, some case they're a bit bigger, may have disproportionate amount of power just because they can help you win an election.
This is literally what the threat that they're making is. This is literally what the threat that they're making is. They're saying in this report that Labour has been losing seats to independent Muslim parties or independent Muslim candidates. And hint, hint, the way to regain those votes is to align with us on questions around Gaza, Islamophobia, free speech, blasphemy laws, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So they're wielding that threat that we are an organized minority who will vote in bloc, and unless you deliver the goods to our community, we will find other candidates, and this can cost you elections.
And I think, in a way, look, do we blame any organization for wanting to say we're going to vote in blocks and be able to do it? And if the Catholics and the Christian church was able to motivate all its people to vote in a block, then they might be able to transform it themselves, if it wasn't for the fact that many of them are so weak at the top that they don't even consider this as a danger or the capability of doing so.
Yep.
And they suggest that most Catholics will vote for the Labour Party, and that's the way that the priests have done so.
Yeah, tolerance tolerance is not a virtue.
No.
Well-judged, well-aimed intolerance is the virtue. When you see a problem, try to nip it in the bud. And this is exactly what's been happening. Now, the government did shut down the Civil Service Muslim Network.
I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know
They did shut it down briefly.
that. It was only brief.
It was an alarming continuation of anti-Muslim rhetoric spouted by top members of the British government in recent days. On 15 March, the Civil Service Muslim Network was suspended by Oliver Dowden. This was under the Conservatives.
My gosh. Something suspended by Oliver Dowden. I mean, you couldn't get more left-wing than Oliver Dowden in the Labour.
It was suspended for being
Party.
anti-Muslim.
Well, the standard for being anti-Muslim is a very good question. The reason for this break, however, was again to do with issues relating to Israel.
Right.
So the establishment acts in one way only, but it doesn't act to defend the public. The union that defended the Muslim network, the Public and Commercial Services Union, this is the key union for the civil service. It also has an affiliation with Friends of Cuba.
Mm.
So essentially, it's communist, more or less. It's happy to affiliate itself with Cuba.
Mm.
It's a problem if you have the civil service championing the interests of Cuba or the well-being of communism, but they're equal opportunity unions. They support both Cuba and the Muslim network.
And what I'm looking down on that, and I find that particular image, or rather the language of the image, the guardians for the truth, for the truth. I mean, that sounds to me that something comes straight out of the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
Where we're just or indeed George Orwell's 1984's old movies.
Yes.
You know, for the truth, for the truth. We're the ones with the truth. Anyone else doesn't have the truth. You know, as if there is one truth.
So look at the truth. Palestine truth.
Yeah.
Power of a Muslim woman.
Truth.
These
Guarding
are the top truths that
innocence.
they have.
Truth.
Guarding innocence. I'm in favor of guarding the innocence of children.
Yeah.
Fully agreed here. Hold on. I'm not sure what we're holding on
It's a
to.
song at the end.
Maybe it's a song at the end.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't see as any of them as truths at all.
So essentially, these guys are, championing an ideology that is at odds with the British state while being supported by the civil service.
No one has the truth, though. No one has the real truth. I mean, that's
Well,
it. 1 + 1 might be a truth. Okay, that's fine. But in terms of the way that we interpret questions, how can they dare suggest that they have the truth?
This is why the Christian God is expressed in a mystery of a triune God, to suggest to us that we as human beings don't fully access the truth. There's a reason for this. But then, after Labour took power, they were cleared.
Oh, well, it would be.
It confirms that the issue was over Gaza and over their position on Gaza, not over the fact that they're championing sectarianism and that they are championing the well-being of one group versus the others.
Yeah.
But the issue was Gaza for the government. That's what upset the government. Mm. And then now they've since reconciled and made up. Why? Because Keir Starmer really, really, really is worried about losing the Muslim vote in the next election.
He's going to anyway. I mean, this is like kowtowing to somebody who's beating you on a regular basis.
Yep.
And saying, I'm sorry that you're beating me. Can you beat me a little bit more? And I'll be abused a little bit more from you, but I know you're still going to leave me for the next person you're going to beat.
More or less. Yes, that's what it is. It's an abusive relationship. And because the Muslim Council of Britain is still not in the government's good books, what has happened is that a new and different body has been set up by, I would assume, somewhat like-minded people.
Same people.
With the intention of being an organ that can work with the British government. So when one organization gets burnt, it's okay, discard it, set up a new one, and then everybody will endorse it. Labour, Conservatives, and Liberal Democrats are saying, yes, we want to have sectarian politics, we want to talk to different ethnic groups and identity groups as a bloc. The only people who aren't allowed to organize as an ethnic group or as an interest group are you-know-who, the extremists.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.